Alright folks, at this point you should have a good idea of how to open a new project in Visual Studios. I thought I would go ahead and do that really quickly for the things that we're going to do today. And today what we're going to do is learn how to do more output, how to do a little bit of arithmetic in the output, and we'll learn what comments are. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Comments and Math. That's going to be the name of my project. Again, we're going to leave it in the location that it does by default, which is Documents, Visual Studios 2015. Make sure you have Visual C++ and Win32 console selected. And I'm going to make it an empty project so that we can develop our console application. Just like all applications, we're going to need a source file, and it's all going to have kind of the same shell around it. Which is the same for all of our programs. It's a pound include IO stream for the cout and cin stuffs, using namespace standard to make the cout and cin stuff a little bit easier, and main, which is where everything happens. Let's start with comments. There are two types of comments in C++. These carry over to some other languages that do similar things. One is called a single line comment. Basically, after you type 2 slashes, anything after it is a comment. And what that means is it's not translated or compiled. So it's thrown away by the compiler. It doesn't actually do anything in the code. You can put whatever you want there. It doesn't have to follow a sentence format or anything like that. And that's really, really useful in order to be able to document your code, to talk about things that might be a little difficult in your code and things like that. So this is a single line comment. You can start them at the end of a line, and that's okay too. I wouldn't recommend commenting every single line that you write, but it can be useful to comment occasionally to explain what's going on at the beginning of functions and things like that. You might not know what those are yet. That's okay. We'll get there. The other kind of comment is called a multi-line comment. Multi-line comments, like their name, can span over multiple lines. They start with a slash star and they end with a star slash. You'll notice that in Visual Studios 2015, it inserted the star slash, both of them, after I typed the slash star. And you can continue this comment over multiple lines. With the theme that I have installed, everything is dark. And the text is kind of bright. I like it that way. I like dark themes. So multi-line comments can be used to just kind of say something more. You can write an entire paragraph that spans multiple lines. It doesn't have to run very, very long on a single line, just so that you can say more. Okay? That's a multi-line comment. You should comment your code. You should at least put a comment at the top of the code describing what it does. Maybe get into the habit of writing things like created on and modified by, things like that, and maybe describe what they're going to do. So in this one we're going to describe comments and some arithmetic using C++. Okay, at this point we can do comments just to show that this actually does what I say it does. You can go ahead and start this without debugging. Again, I don't think this is going to show up on your screen, but the only thing that it does compile, and it says hi, even if you can't see it. Alright, what's next? The next thing I want to show you is arithmetic and how to concatenate some things together with cout. So we'll first start with just numbers. Let's say I wanted to output the sentence, I am the number 3. Well, I could do that by just writing this out like this. Okay, it's just a string. Anything between two quotes is called a string, and it will literally be output exactly as you write it in between the quotes. Well, it turns out that in C++ types matter, and you can output things of different types, and you can concatenate them all together. Concatenate means just to put one right after the other. You can concatenate them all together using more less than brackets. And so you can see here the second line says, I am the number, space, and then this is different because this is no longer a string, and this is the first time that we're seeing a number in our little video tutorials. This is actually an integer. It's a different type than the string, but this will get concatenated all together. If I were to run this program now, I would get hi, I'm the number 3, and then I'm the number 3 again. But the way that it puts this text together is slightly different. What's great about this, what's great about being able to use the numbers, is that you can start to use this for arithmetic. So the area of a circle with radius 8 is, and then I can do some arithmetic, just like you would type it maybe in a calculator or something like that. It's 3.14 times 8 times 8, pi times the radius squared, right? And so what I should expect to get out of this is a sentence that says the area of the circle is, and then this is actually going to compute the result of whatever 3.14 times 8 is. Again, you should compile and debug often. You can see that this does compile okay. And if you can happen to see my output, you see that it says the area of a circle with radius 8 is 200.96. That's great. And close. It's not precise because we didn't use a precise value of pi, but we use something pretty close. And if you hover over some of these things, you'll see what Visual Studio characterizes them as. This says const char 39, which is an array of characters, which is a string. So we're just going to call this a string. This says int, the number 8. This says double, and then roughly 3.14. Turns out doubles only have about 13 digits of precision or so. And so this is not exactly 3.14, which might disturb you a little bit, but it's good enough. You don't need 13 digits in order to compute the area of a circle with radius 8. I don't need more than 13 digits. It's completely fine. This is why we only use 3 digits for pi, is because generally that's completely fine. Anyway, so you can put multiple things together. You can string them over multiple lines like this. Turns out C++ does not care about white space. So spaces and returns and things like that are just kind of deleted and thrown away. Another thing that you can do is other types of arithmetic. So you can add a half to a half. Now, the catch here is that this is going to perform integer arithmetic. In integer arithmetic, everything that comes out of it has to be an integer. So when I do an operation like 1 divided by 2, I'm actually going to get a value of 0. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, of course, but if you have to convert that into an integer, you have two choices, 0 and 1. Now C++ does not round up. It doesn't do rounding. It simply throws away the decimal. And so if you have a number 0.5 and you throw away the decimal part, then you're left with 0. So 1 divided by 2 is 0. So adding a half plus a half gives you a result of 0. This is a useful trick and something that I kind of use a lot in my programs to do various different things and converting different numbers in different ways. But it is probably a common error for a lot of new people learning C++. So it's good to be aware of this situation. You can force these numbers not to do integer arithmetic by putting a decimal place at the end of them. If you hover over these in Visual Studios, you'll see that this is a double and this is an int. And in that way, we can force this to do double arithmetic or integer arithmetic as we like. There are other types of casting and typecasting that you can do, but we're still really early on. We don't even have variables yet. So we're going to stick with this. If you go ahead and run this program now, remember, debug often, compile and debug often. That will help you catch errors, especially as you're new. You'll see that the first one outputs 0, because 1 divided by 2 is 0, plus 1 divided by 2, which is 0. And the second one outputs 1, because a half plus a half is 1. And the one is doing integer arithmetic, and the other one is doing double arithmetic or floating point arithmetic using doubles. And so it has those extra digits of precision. You can actually get away with only converting one of those numbers to a double, and it will out-convert the other one from an integer to a double. But it's probably, for clarity's sake, better to do both if you're going to do one or the other for now, as you're new. Okay, so at this point, you know how to write some comments. You can see that I've got a couple of useful comments here that kind of describe what we're doing. You know how to put multiple things together in an output. They don't have to traverse multiple lines here, but I'm kind of working on limited screen space, and so I maybe close all this, maybe you get a little more screen space out of it. So I put them in 2 different lines. But you could do something like concatenate these over over several pieces of cout streams here. I've got a string, a number followed by a string, and that works just fine. Another thing that is probably worth noting is that you don't have to put an indel at the end of everything. And if you don't, it simply won't put the end line after that sentence. And so if you were to run this now, you would get hi, that's way up here in the code. I'm the number 3, I'm the number 3. The area of a circle with a radius 8 is roughly 201. It's a 200.96 or something like that. It will output 0 here, it will output a 1 here, it will output, hi, I am 10 years old, followed by a space, followed by this is another sentence. And it's only followed by a space because there's no end line here to end this line. I do recommend putting at least one end L at the very end of your output for terminal reasons, because things will run together if you don't do that. But just to make sure all of this is working, here it is. Hopefully you can see this window, although I'm not sure that you can. Okay, that concludes our video for today. We've learned about how to output more than one thing with a cout statement. We've learned how to do some integer arithmetic versus double arithmetic, how to do arithmetic at all. It's the first time we've done that. How to concatenate different types in a cout statement. And hopefully that's a good step in your evolution. You're going to see comments on every piece of code that you're ever going to see. So it's something to get used to seeing here and there. There are different things that people do to make them look pretty. But I think that's all for today. Next time, look forward to learning some variables, learning some types, and how we can use those types. And that's it for today. Bye.